Hey, I'm Jake. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2 because I freaking love this system. Today we're talking about an archetype I don't love, but I don't hate it either, Viking. I'm going to read the blurb and then talk about the feats and what's good about them and what's not. I'm going to read the blurb in order to point out what else this could be. Viking. To go a Viking is to raid by sea, and thus Vikings have spread far and wide. Some have even settled in the very communities they once raided. Vikings traditionally travel in longboats. A score of these warriors might live aboard their ship for days at a time, sailing the seas, or as they call it, the Whale Road. I don't know if they would call it that. To ambush coastal communities. Once they arrive at a settlement, they charge ashore, plundering all they can find and slaying anyone foolish enough to get in their way. The ferocity of Viking raids is legendary. You know what else this sounds like? Pirates. This Viking dedication really fits pirates well. I'm actually considering giving it as a bonus archetype, like this or pirate, to an upcoming one-shot group. I mean, it doesn't do a lot, but okay, so we'll get into it. A Viking dedication, level 2 feat, prerequisites trained in athletics. Multiple times here, you'll see that it is based on physical strength a lot, but you could actually take it without being a martial class, or at least without being like a good martial class. Like you could be a rogue or even a mage if you wanted to be, but that'd be stupid. But you get proficiencies to make this useful later on if you want to take the feats. So almost anyone can take this. It's still only going to really help people who are melee. So Viking dedication. Vikings spend long periods of time at sea, only to leap from their boats at a moment's notice, charge through the surf, and take their enemies by storm. You're trained in sailing lore, which is amazing if you are sailing. Okay. When moving through water using your land speed, you ignore difficult terrain resulting from shallow water, such as in bogs or on beaches. In addition, if you roll a success for your athletics check to swim, you get a critical success instead. I really like part of this ability for other purposes. Like, you could see a swamp dweller using this, not just somebody who's used to getting off of a boat and running onto land. This really says pirate to me, more than Viking. Alright, second ability, level 4 feat. Hurling Charge. You make a ranged strike with a thrown weapon you already have in your hand, stride, and then interact to draw another weapon. If you're raging, you can add the additional damage with melee weapons you receive from raging to your damage with the thrown weapon. So that's a cool little bonus if you're raging, because it fits the theme. But let's think about this for a moment. You make a ranged strike with a thrown weapon you already have in your hand, stride, and then interact. This takes 2 actions. So you throw a thing, move, and then theoretically you've moved up to base-to-base combat with somebody else, and you pull out a weapon. If they have reactive strike, you're using an interact action, they probably get to try to hit you. It's not the best combination for mechanics uses. It's thematically appropriate. Like, I can picture pulling out an axe, and throwing it and running into combat, pulling out your longsword, but cinematics aside, it's not as useful as it could be. Alright. The next feat is not actually in the Advanced Player's Guide. It's an additional feat from a different class, from Fighter. Reactive Shield. Level 4 feat. If an enemy hits you with a melee strike and you're wielding a shield, you can snap your shield into place just as you would take a blow, avoiding the hit at the last second. You immediately use the raise a shield action and gain your shield's bonus to AC. The circumstance bonus from the shield applies to your AC when you're determining the outcome of the triggering attack. It's useful. Cool. Because it's a shield thing, not everybody will care. But it's useful for survival because it's a shield thing. Next level 4 feat, Viking Weapon Familiarity. Viking Weapon Familiarity, level 4 feat. From childhood, you have been exposed to traditional Viking weapons, and you soon learned to handle them in battle. Now you can raid proudly against your fellows. You are trained in the battle axe, hatchet, longsword, and short sword. In addition, you gain the shield block reaction. If you're a fighter, this means dick to you. If you're a champion, this means dick to you. If you're a rogue, it might help because it gives you some martial weapon proficiencies, but you probably don't actually care because you're using different weapons for your sneak attack. And it gives you a shield block reaction. Okay, great. I don't really know who this feat is for. Who would want to bother taking this? Fine. Level 6 feat. Second shield. It's a free action. This is a great feat. Trigger. Your shield block causes your shield to break or be destroyed. You're used to your shield breaking in the middle of battle, and you're prepared to use a backup or any convenient nearby object to defend yourself. You can interact to draw a shield on your person or an unattended shield within your reach if there is an object within your reach that could serve as an improvised shield. For example, a table or chair. You can interact to draw it with this feat. The GM determines if something can be used as an improvised shield. Your new shield isn't raised until you raise a shield action as normal. This is amazing for so many people. I love this feat. Why is it restricted to Viking? Right, I know, because then people wouldn't bother taking Viking, but it's so neat. Shield breaks. Pick up a nearby table or, halfling. It can be an object. What if he's petrified? Second shield should be in every bar brawler's back pocket. You shouldn't have to actually be a Viking to take this archetype because it has so much flexibility. Nonat said that he doesn't know what this archetype is for, like who it's for specifically. I agree with that with one of the feats so far. But overall, I see a lot of different types of builds taking pieces of this. I think that if I were to run this as a GM, I would just say, for this archetype and for Pirate and maybe a few others, you're not restricted to taking at least 2 after the main dedication feat, because you just can't get as much benefit out of it as you should be able to from an archetype. But there are some things in it that are awesome, like the second shield. Next feat, level 6 feat, Shielded Stride. This is another one that's not in the Advanced Player's Guide. The Shielded Stride is usable for the archetypes Bastion and Viking, and for fighters, of course. When your shield is up, your enemy's blows can't touch you. When you have your shield raised, you can stride to move half your speed without triggering reactions that are triggered by your movement, such as Reactive Strike. You can use Shielded Stride while flying or swimming instead of striding if you have the corresponding movement type. It's cool. It's useful for just a little bit more motion. I guess you'd have to be a melee fighter type person to take this. Like, I keep picturing rogues taking parts of this, but the Shielded Stride, I don't think you would bother because... Are you going to bother to shield? I don't know. I don't think so. But maybe after you've, lost the opportunity to do sneak attacks? No, because you create them in combat. I don't know. Maybe it's not a rogue thing. Maybe it's only martials. Melee martials. Yeah. Still. It's a good feat. It's a useful feat. Most of the feats in this are simply useful for a melee martial. I don't really think it should be called Viking because I think it might put some people off of taking it. It could just be like, I don't know, Versatile Weapon Master. Some stupid bullshit name. Next, level 6 feat. Viking Weapon Specialist. You have to take Viking Weapon Familiarity first. You are even more skilled in the weapons of your people. You gain the critical specialization effects of the battle axe, hatchet, longsword, and short sword, which are all martial weapons. Whenever you gain a class feature that grants you expert or greater proficiency in certain weapons, you also gain the proficiency rank in the above 4 weapons. Niche, useful. Sort of like Bounty Hunter. It's there if you want it. You probably don't. But the specialization effect is nice to have. I guess that would be sort of like a quality of life enhancement. You just happen to get the critical special effects of the weapons you use the most. But not everybody would care. I think it should be a skill feat. It's worth like a half a feat, which is basically a skill feat. Level 8. Viking Vindicator. It's uncommon unless you are a Knight of Last Wall. You are one of the raiders eagerly planning to launch an assault by sea on the Whispering Tyrant's Isle of Terror. You gain the Sudden Charge Fighter feat, though it's a Viking feat for you instead. As normal when gaining an additional feat from an archetype feat, gaining Sudden Charge doesn't count toward fulfilling the special requirement for Viking dedication. If you already had Sudden Charge, you can retrain it as part of gaining this feat. When you use Sudden Charge to strike a target in shallow water, the target is flat-footed against your strike, as you use the water kicked up by your passage to camouflage your angle of attack. Off guard. Same thing. Flat-footed, off guard. If you have Viking Weapon Familiarity or Viking Weapon Specialist, add the Bastard Sword and Rapier to the list of weapons in those feats. This is awesome if you can somehow gain a benefit from having somebody off guard, like a rogue. And I think this feat is why I keep mentioning rogue throughout this, because this is so great. It's just extra motion and extra benefits for hitting somebody that you were going to hit anyway. This is good. Level 10 feat, Quick Shield Block. This is available for champions, fighters, bastions, and Vikings. You can bring your shield into place with hardly a thought. At the start of each of your turns, you gain an additional reaction that you can use only to shield block. Cool. Alright, I mean, like, you could, with that extra reaction, pick up a table or, I don't know. Corpses are objects. If it's a dense enough corpse, you could use it for a shield. I mean, of course, talk to your GM first, but that's technically true. They're objects. Yeah. You kill one enemy, somebody else steps up, you pick up the corpse of the first dude and block with it. Alright, so overall, Viking, it's piecemeal useful. Just ignore that it's for Vikings. It's good for walking in shallow water and gaining benefits for doing so, and using shields and the sudden charge thing. That's it. I mean, it could be a lizard folk could like have this as easily accessed by any lizard folk because, or Rooksy, because they're used to fighting in shallow water. This makes sense to me. Just instead of calling it Viking, call it, I don't know, Swamp Runner. Fine, why not? Cool, it's a good archetype. Enjoy. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a patron if you are. If you're not a patron, what are you even doing with your life? No, seriously, I appreciate the help from the patrons. It's how we keep giving kitties rotting duck treats. Oh, those things are nasty. But he loves them. So that's what you do when you love somebody, even if it's disgusting. You just let them do it. Thank you for being here. If you want to be a patron, click on the link below. If you want to see the build videos, click here. They're awesome and fun. Backstories are priority in any of my builds. And live plays, why not? Watch the streams. They're fun too. The slithering became a weird mad scientist-y investigation, which isn't a bad thing.